Okay, we're going to go ahead and start this meeting, even though we don't have a quorum. But let's go ahead and take a roll call, just make sure who's here.
Deborah Foster, absent. Commissioner Warren.
Present.
Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Okay. Commissioner Nix is absent. Commissioner Miles, absent. Commissioner McKay, absent. And Commissioner Zimbelman.
At this time, I'd like to welcome Tony Zimbelman to the Advanced Plans Committee. And can you give us 2 sentences about your background?
My background is mainly in construction. 10 years with a commercial company and the past 30 years as a home builder. And so.
Thank you. I've known Tony for a while. And
yeah, it goes clear back to the commercial days.
Okay. We'll go ahead with our first item. And Scott, you want to kick it off?
All right. Well, let's see. I think Paul's going to bring up the PowerPoint here. Just a minute. So thank you for having this special meeting of the Advanced Plans. This gives us an opportunity to run this concept by you, which is the open house concept. We are planning on holding the open house on November 16th. It's a Thursday, and we would hold that out at the Sedgwick County Extension Office. So, and I've got graphics kind of show you a little bit more about that in just a moment. And the intention here is not necessarily that you have to approve those plans for the open house, but just simply to run those concepts past you, see if you've got any comments. Really, the goal is to make sure that we're going to be meeting the needs of the community by gathering the correct and necessary information. Okay, it looks like we're getting that up. Okay, let me step back there and see if Paul's gonna go check with him. Sometimes I wish we had a little window that we could see what's going on back there. It's not opening? Oh, all right. Well, give me a moment. I'll tell you what, if you're okay with it, what if we switch to talking about the online survey? I could talk through that. Don't have a PowerPoint on that one. And then if we could go back to the open house item, that buy us a little bit of time. Would you be okay with that?
Go ahead.
Okay, very good. So it was distributed today. We've got a handout. We've got more coming from the front office. We've got a handout of the survey questions, and the intent behind the survey questions is that they would mirror what's going to be asked at the open house. So the document, I believe everyone's got a copy of it, shows an introduction. It's the one with draft across it, and it's got a large table of contents. There are a variety of different elements that we would ask questions about, and you can see those listed there. The format is that we would present what the existing regulations are, both from the zoning code and also what the existing guidance is from the comprehensive plan, and then provide people an opportunity to go ahead and ask questions about it. The idea, again, is to mirror the format of what we would be asking for at the open house with the boards and the different stations. And then that way, when the feedback comes back from the online survey, that it could match up apples to apples with what you'll see from the report from the open house event. So the question for you all today, as members of the Advanced Plans Committee, is Whether or not you think that those are the appropriate topics, whether or not you think that we're asking the questions in an appropriate way, it's the same question. It's really the background material that changes.
Mr. Warren,
Scott, there's just gonna be one open house, and tell me a little bit about what the format and where it's gonna be.
You betcha. Actually, that's a great segue into the open house PowerPoint. Looks like we got that going. So if you'd like, I can go through that and cover the survey at the same time.
go ahead.
Okay. So Paul, next slide, please. Okay, so again, today it's a request that you just provide feedback about the format and the material that would be presented and the way that we would collect the input. Next slide, please. So again, there's a moratorium in place by Sedgwick County. They've charged the Planning Commission and the Planning Department with one, reviewing the existing zoning code relative to commercial utility scale solar. And then number two, that the Planning Commission would bring forward any proposed changes or amendments to the zoning code and to the comprehensive plan. So that is the task before you all. Next slide. In order to help accomplish that, we put together a draft process. We reviewed that with you at the last MAPC Advanced Plans meeting. Next slide. Within that process, there's a recommendation for both an open house and an online survey. And so for this meeting today is an opportunity to review the plans for those. Next slide. So in terms of the open house, we're proposing that it would be on November 16th, which is a Thursday. It would start at 4:30 in the afternoon. The reason why we do it, we're proposing that time is because that's late enough that people can get out of work a little bit early and go and visit the open house before they go home. We're proposing that it would end at 7:30. The reason for that is because that provides enough time for people to go home, turn around, come back to the meeting if they wish. The format would be an open house, but also a town hall, a combination of that. And so in order to accomplish the town hall portion, we envision doing a presentation at 6 o'clock. The presentation would be a format where we would have experts or material experts from Sedgwick County up at the front. We would do a short PowerPoint, and then we would open it up with microphones for members of the public to come in and provide comments. The comments would be recorded, and then we would record those and type those out for you so that you would have those in the summary packet from the open house. Next slide. So the open house, we've got it scheduled to take place at the Sedgwick County Extension Office. We were looking for an area that was convenient to folks from throughout Sedgwick County. Next slide. Within Sedgwick County Extension Office, they've got what I would refer to as the Great Hall. It's a very large room that has a stage. It's got a microphone system. It's got a screen. So we're going to have a space to do the PowerPoint show, all that good stuff, plenty of tables and chairs. Next slide. So this is the proposed setup. The stage is where the screen is, where the AV equipment is. So we would set up that portion of the room for the presentation and discussion. And then behind that, on the other side of the room, we would set up the various stations where people could provide their comments using sticky notes and post those up on boards that would accompany the sign. So essentially each station is made up of at least one board with information about the existing regulations or existing guidance, and then a second blank board where people can take sticky notes, write out their comments and post them. The reason why I'm recommending that format is because it allows people who follow up subsequently to be able to post comments that reflect off of comments that have already been posted, and allows for kind of a dialogue over a series of time. In addition, if members of the public aren't comfortable with providing comments in a way that's publicly viewable, we would also have comment forms that they could walk around and fill out the comment forms as they're going through the open house event, and they can drop those off at the in the middle there with a comment form box, and then we would summarize. We would take those comments and transcribe those again for the summary report. Next slide. So here are some photos, some examples from previous open house events. So always got a welcome table. We get signatures from folks. We distribute any materials that they would need to participate in the open house. We also collect contact information in case folks want to be contacted or kept up to date on the process. Next slide. So again, the open house typically includes boards with opportunities for folks to learn about specific topics, and then also places where they can provide comments and whatever information they would like to share as well. Next slide. So here's some examples of some prior sticky note boards that we've done with other projects. Next slides. Here's an example of a more of a town hall kind of setting that we've done in conjunction with an open house event. So at a certain time, you notify everyone, hey, we're going to do a presentation. If you'd like, you can step over here and we can go through that. This one was a little less formal, no microphones, but just, a chance to chat and go through it. Next slide. This is an example of a comment form. So again, lists the event. It's got the information. You can also submit these after the event if you wish, but it's an opportunity for folks to take this and fill it out with a clipboard. Next slide. And here's what a summary looks like. So we've done a number of open house events. This is just an example from one of those. It summarizes where it happened, what it was about, what the various stations were, the different format, and then on the other side, you can see here we've got a listing of the comments that we received from one of them. We take photos of everything, so everything's documented in terms of what was submitted. Next slide. Okay, and that covers the open house. In terms of the stations that we would use, we're proposing that the stations would reflect the questions that you see on the draft survey in front of you. So believe there's a station on, oh, let me grab a copy real quick. Okay, so there's a station, for instance, on environment. So the environment, another one on aesthetics and visuals, another one on wildlife and vegetation, size and configuration is another one, transportation, soils and stormwater, economic and urban growth areas, glare and airports, decommissioning, and then the comprehensive plan. In addition, it's not listed on here, but another station that we would include, it's not going to be a question. I don't know if it'll be a question on the online. It might be, but I don't think so. Would be a station for the open house on what other communities are doing too. So it'd be an opportunity for folks to ask questions about what's going on in Johnson County, Butler County, et cetera. Yes, sir.
Back to Mr. Warren's question. Will there be only one open house?
Yes, sir. At this time, that's what we're planning on. And the reason why is just because the schedule is so tight between now and March with the holidays. If needed, we could certainly put together another one. But at this point, we're just planning on one.
And I assume from your comments, the online survey will be put out before the open house.
The timing of that, that's a great question. I'll need to get with the communications folks and see if we want to do it. Either we would do it before and allow it to run through the open house. But the way that we've done it in the past with some other ones is that we'll launch it the day of the open house and then keep it open longer after the open house is completed.
I thought you said that the survey would provide questions that people could ask during the open house.
Oh, it would actually be the same question. So at the stations, so printed up on the boards, you would essentially have the same information that would be in the online survey. But what we want to do is we want to keep it fairly consistent so that when we bring the information back to you all, you're not getting apples and oranges that you're comparing, you're getting apples and apples.
So I assume you're not going to have any question and answers at this event. You're just trying to get the questions at this point.
And we actually will. So the open house portion with the stations is an opportunity for folks to, just write out stuff. They don't have to present in front of a large group or ask their question in front of a large group. But if people are comfortable with that format, we will have that as part of kind of more of a town hall. So we'll do the presentation. Staff will make a presentation about what our current regulations are. And then At the conclusion of that presentation, there'll be an opportunity for folks from the audience to ask questions. Yep.
A question? Yeah, Chuck.
Scott, kind of the front end and the back end of this, how are we getting word out? Is it an invitation?
No.
Process to see who's gonna be there?
Yeah, it'll be a broad broadcast of the invitation right now, because we're moving pretty quickly on this. We wanted to check in with you all, but we're getting a save the date put together right now by County Communications. That will be going out later on this week. And then early part of next week, I believe that we'll have more of a finalized agenda. We're posting it on the website, and then we'll be advertising that, I believe, on Google through their advertising process, as well as hitting the local media. I think the county is trying to line up some discussions with some of the TV stations, maybe a radio station as well.
And then once the open house is complete, what happens with that?
Sure.
Process for disseminate, you got the summary?
Yeah, so
Who's it go to and how do they use it?
So we'll do the summary. We'll post that online on the webpage. So that'll be open and available for members of the public. But we'll also bring that back to you. So we will bring the results
Plans or the full MAPC?
to advanced plans. Yep. Now, when the item does, if there are any changes that are proposed or recommended by advanced plans for MAPC to consider, we will include, I would envision that we would include the summary from the open house and the online survey as part of the backup materials for that as well. So the full MAPC will see that. It will just be as part of the attachments to the staff report.
And their role is to make recommendations to who?
The recommendation, the county commission has tasked the MAPC with making recommendations if there are any changes that should be made to either the comprehensive plan and or the zoning code.
Any other questions? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
seeing none, tucked neatly between 2 and 4 is item 3 about solar regulation state of practice by Mary Hunt.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. Mary Hunt, planner with the Planning Department. If we could have the next slide, please. I've been investigating what other counties have been doing. Initially, a couple of years ago, we started working with Johnson County and Douglas County, seeing what they're doing because they've had applications. They have, I know that Douglas County has a solar farm under construction at this time. And I know Johnson County is expecting something by year end. Don't know if that'll happen because they've given us several dates over the past year or so, and it keeps getting pushed out. But we have investigated that. And then more recently, we took a look at the surrounding counties around Sedgwick, including Butler, Harvey, Reno, Kingman, and Sumner County. And I'll just let you know, Butler County is still in draft form. Reno County is still in draft form, although they are expecting a public hearing on November 9th. So that's coming right up. And then Kingman County. All right, next slide, please. So we looked at many things. I'll just show you this little spreadsheet. It's not little at all, but it's 2 pages and not easy to read, but we're keeping track of the information from their code. But one of the big things, of course, is acreage. We're looking at large systems only. Some communities don't have a designation of small, medium, and large. And small would be someone who has solar panels on their house or their business, and it's primarily for their own use. And then medium size are, maybe 10 acres or something. And then large are the industrial sized solar farms. So what we're looking at here right now are the large systems. And these are the variety of Sizes, Douglas County has to be more than 10 acres. Douglas is only 5, but less than 1,000. Butler, their proposal right now, greater than 20, but less than 2,500 acres. And Sumner County didn't list any minimum or maximum. And Harvey County, 10-acre maximum. And they too have a moratorium until December 5th. Interesting thing about Harvey County is not a large county. It's about, I'd say, maybe a little over half the size of Sedgwick County. And with Newton being up there, they're a highly urbanized county. And their citizens just said, we don't want wind, we don't want solar, because they don't have a lot of ag land really left to do thing of any consequence. So that's kind of the range you have. Is Sumner County, their regulations were so slim. It's like they're just inviting somebody to come in and do something there. Whereas Harvey is like, stay out. So next slide, please. Okay, here's some more. Reno County, they have a moratorium until the end of the year. And the sizes allowed are unknown at this time. So they're investigating that. Kingman has to be less than or equal to 25 acres. Wichita, the city and our surrounding growth area has to be greater than 3, and then Sedgwick County greater than 20. And of course, our moratorium is on until 3rd week of March. Yeah.
Clarify that that's what was proposed. That's not been adopted.
Oh, yes. Yeah, these are.
You do that on the microphone.
Yeah, Sedgwick County has a moratorium until March 20th, and this is strictly proposed at this point. They haven't adopted. Some have adopted theirs and have been in place for some years, and some have not.
Mary,
Yes.
if I have a office building and I have a parking garage and I put solar panels on top of the parking garage,
Mhm.
is that a small project?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Real quick, I just want to clarify that the sizes that Mary's reporting for Wichita and Sedgwick County, currently in our code, there's no distinction between large and small. This was an effort that we had gone through in terms of updating, potential updates to the code. Those were essentially put on ice for right now during the moratorium process. So, but those are the numbers that Mary's referring to in the slide about Wichita and Sedgwick County.
So next slide, please. So there are quite a few requirements that people are looking at when they're drafting up their code. And I'll go through some that I think kind of rise to the top, although there are quite a few. Most of them have conditional use permits, although in Kingman, they used a special use permit. And I believe the difference between that is public hearings and such. Construction normally needs to begin within 2 years. They need to show what their estimated energy capacity is. What are they going to be producing? Are they going to be connected to the grid, and how are they going to do that? The number of panels, the project size. And the project size really includes all of the panels, but all of any structures or other type of apparatus that are on that land, including drive lanes to get to various parts of the site. And many of them require a visual impact analysis, which is typically like a rendering of what it's going to look like. Next slide. Okay, I'd say an overwhelming theme that goes through these is the environmental impact. That seems to be what people are most concerned with. That's certainly what Butler County is looking at right now, and what Douglas County is looking at right now. And so grading plans, stormwater, drainage plans, soil erosion, all of those kinds of things go into those environmental investigation, and as well as the decommissioning plan when either somebody walks away from a project, or if it's simply at the end of its useful life. How do you handle that? And then traffic, was it Kingman didn't even mention traffic. Apparently they're either they're not concerned about it, or it just hasn't hasn't come to their attention yet. But in some cases, depending upon the size of the solar farm, traffic could be an issue, whether it's during construction or even after. And then, of course, solar glare. And some places will have specific requirements on solar glare or lighting, things like that. And others will just say, you need to tell us what you're going to do about solar glare. So they kind of volley the ball across the net and ask the proposer to describe what they'll do. Okay, next slide. Okay, another big part of this, of course, is their emergency plan, which includes your fire department, making sure the fire department reviews everything, gets their approval, because we have these battery storage systems on there that could certainly be problematic for the fire department if they don't know how to handle it. So they have to have a battery storage configuration. One county even included that they almost had like double hull construction on their battery storage. They had a building inside a building to protect against, explosions and things. And then another one had like a 10-foot buffer around that building on all four sides, again, to prevent fire issues. And then security fencing could have definitely have barbed wire on the top to prevent people getting in there, addressing ground cover, and then of course noise standards. And again, some just said tell us what you're going to do about noise, or take that into consideration, versus somebody else saying, we want this many decibels or under. Okay, they get highly specific, highly programmed standards on noise. Next slide, please. Okay, then we have things like setbacks, and setbacks can run anywhere from 40 feet to 150 feet, depending upon where it is. Sign standards, and those are generally sign standards have to do with letting somebody know that there's some type of threat if somebody gets too close to something. And generally it's internal to the solar farm. Most of them ask for underground utilities, addressing how they're going to maintain everything, including the ground cover. Lighting standards, again, how many lumens, and almost everybody, even if they didn't list how many lumens that there were going to be, they wanted all of the light shining down so that it's not infringing on, say, a neighbor. And then outside storage, no one allowed outside storage. Everything had to be contained inside a building. And others looked at, it's not written up here, but others looked at the wildlife corridors. One place went as far as having a fence, but the fence had to have slats that were 5 inches apart so birds could fly through and things like that. So that was common. Butler County was the only one that is proposing a neighborhood meeting. Okay. Everyone else is going through their regular conditional use public hearing processes that they do for many things. Next slide, please. So some of the observations. Sumner County focuses on wind. Read through their code and they rarely mention solar, although the overall arching code is about solar energy as well. I talked about Harvey County, so they don't really have a lot of capacity for these solar farm opportunities, conditional use permits versus just permits. And then some have general regulations that they'll review when somebody submits something, and then they'll start critiquing what's been submitted, versus others who are highly prescribed. And so we have our moratoriums going here right now. Okay, and that is what I have update, and we continue to update this. The ones in the counties surrounding Sedgwick, that research was done fairly recently. And so there are questions that come up that only their staff can answer. So you end up playing telephone tag for a while, and we'll fill in those questions as they come along.
Mary, would it be appropriate to go ahead and take any public comment? now, or do we wait till all the items are covered?
Oh, you can take it now. Yes.
Okay. I would like to welcome anybody who would like to speak on this. We're going to allow 3 people, 3 minutes each. Who would like to be first?
Kirk Sponsel, Deputy County Counselor. It's not specifically laid out, but my recommendation would be whoever is here be offered the opportunity to speak on this item. It's not necessarily a public hearing that requires public comment, but the way this is set up is we're looking for feedback. So I'd recommend that the limit of 3 persons be waived. So just as many people as.
Do I have to take your recommendation?
It is certainly the discretion of the board.
All right, I will withdraw that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a couple
Seeing
questions
none.
while we're waiting on that. I got a couple questions. Mary, you talked about visual impact. Did they specify whether that was from the ground, from the air? I mean,
Really, the visual impact analysis is if somebody's living nearby, driving nearby, they can see this solar farm. What's it going to look like? Because some would have regulations on the tilt of the panels. How high up into the air can the panels go? And so they want to have something visual to see that describes that so that surrounding people understand what they might be getting in for.
and then there are comments when you talk with folks from Douglas and Johnson counties. Are they further along than we are? And what is their process in terms of public impact and input?
Well, their public input was primarily environmental. Okay, as a matter of fact, from Lawrence, which is Douglas County, they just emailed me yesterday that they're now looking into zinc pollution in the water table. Okay, somebody brought that up. That isn't specifically in their regulations. So now they may be having an amendment to their regulations based on the results of that. And then they also have, I talked about battery storage systems. They haven't addressed that specifically. They've had a request for a standalone storage system. And they may have to make changes in their code regarding that, but that has just started. Okay, and then Johnson County said they haven't had any changes requested, or have they changed anything since they first approved this a couple of years ago?
Chuck, I take from your question, you might have been concerned about flying over this and the appearance of it.
Yeah, if you're going to do a visual, I mean, you can see it from a lot of different angles. And what are they asking for when they say they want a visual impact statement? Or they what would that entail? Something just from the ground, or would it be broader than that?
Yeah, I took it to be from the ground, but yes.
There is actually one of these solar panel farms that exists. It's on South Andover Road. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not.
Okay, I think it must be in Butler County. But I was just curious with the process they had to go through to get that built, if anybody would know.
Well, we can certainly look into that. We have our
Yeah.
contacts there.
It's probably 2 or 3 miles south of Kellogg, or Highway 400, whatever we call it, on the west side of the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, let's go ahead with public comment. And anyone that would like to comment in written form can send them in to us and we'll respond to that as well. No, oh, you want? Yes, sir. State your name and address, please.
My name is Tim Mullen. I live at 6718 North 135th Street, Colwich. More for Scott. Is it the plan to revise the current resolution that's out there? Or if you get a large number of comments and inputs, would that be basically rewriting the resolution? Or what's your vision there?
Is that all you've got to comment? Go ahead. Go ahead,
That's the
Sean,
only
your
one.
comment.
That's the only one.
Okay. You want me to respond to that right now or?
I would like for you to, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so the question, as I understand it, I'm reflecting it to make sure I got it right. The question is, if there's a lot of comments, then does that guarantee or does that really lead to a change in the code? And my answer would be, it's really at the discretion of the MAPC as a whole on whether or not there should be changes. Because even if there's 100 comments or whatever, no one has established a threshold. It's really up to the discretion of the MAPC. So. So the question is whether or not there would be a split between city and county, as was proposed prior to the moratorium in terms of size. So I don't know. I don't know for sure. I think that the changes that were recommended prior to the moratorium could provide a springboard for the MAPC to look at if there should be changes, but I don't know. We'll see.
Next speaker. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. Next item. Mary?
Okay. And if we can go to the PowerPoint for nightclubs in the city.
I might just say this is a topic that we've discussed a lot. It's created a lot of problems for us in the past. And we're trying to clarify here a nightclub from some other use.
That's right.
So thank you, Mary. Go ahead.
All right. Okay, so we're going to be talking about nightclub in the city and our zoning code. And what we've asked you today to do, well, we'll get to that, but we're asking that this be, our recommended action is that we initiate an amendment to the zoning code and we approve the proposed zoning code updates. So we'll go through that.
Since we don't have a quorum, we can't do that, but we have the option of not taking the action and just passing it on
With your comments.
with our comment.
To take your comments. Okay.
Do
So-
we understand that, Tony and Chuck? Okay,
All right.
thank you.
So, why did we even need to bring nightclubs up for even discussion? Of course, the reason is that we had such kind of confusion from time to time when somebody would be having a venue of some fashion, even if it was just a small little nightclub with a singer and they're serving alcohol. Okay, so you put the entertainment plus the alcohol together and boom, it's called nightclub in the city. And it really kind of frightened people. You get, maybe frightens a little strong, but people were concerned. You send out the notifications that are required by law on these applications. And people would say, why is there a nightclub going in, so close to my house? So anyway, but that's really what brought us here. Okay, next slide, please. So we're looking at some changes to the zoning code. And next slide is what I was originally asking for, so we can skip by that. Next slide. Okay, why? Well, it's to address the confusion that comes because people's idea of what a nightclub is tends to be something big, something noisy, lots of music and dancing and drinking and maybe some food and such. When that's just a certain segment of what nightclubs can be based on our code. So, next slide. So people have expressed concerns because they find out about it. And that reaches out to our residents, businesses, as well as our elected officials. So next slide, please. So this is the definition currently. Nightclub in the city is if you have any type of entertainment, even if it's just one person with a guitar and they're serving alcohol, that equates to nightclub in the city. Next slide. Okay. So we have entertainment versus recreation and entertainment. And that's where we're going here today. This on the left side, entertainment, dancing, live music, concerts, a comedian, etc. That's entertainment. Recreation with entertainment. These tend to be a little bit more, athletic. Bowling, racquetball, handball, golf, etc. Or I should say miniature golf, not golf, okay? Next slide, please. So some of the recent examples we've had where there's been some confusion and some concern, it's a bowling alley that wants to serve alcohol. And they have some karaoke rooms. And then people get the letter in the mail that says, we're doing a nightclub in the city right by you. Or it's a restaurant with a live band, small live band, even a nonprofit with fundraising events. And one I had that I took the calls on was a beauty salon in Bradley Fair that wanted to offer complimentary wine to their patrons because they were there for spa day. And this is what they had to go through because they're right by Wilson Estates. Okay, next. So let's see here. Yeah, next slide, please. So we've got some proposed changes. Okay. The Unified Zoning Code has entertainment in the city. It'll now include offering alcohol. This will bring it in line with our existing definition of a nightclub in the city. We also have the nightclub in the city will now apply to uses that only exceed 300 persons. Okay, so it gets it more in line in what people think of when they hear the word nightclub in the city, and excludes those little restaurants and cafes and such that want to serve some alcohol. Entertainment establishments in the city will now be considered conditional uses. And when they're located within 300 feet of church, public park, public school, or any type of school, or a residential zoning district, and up to 200 feet right now, but now it'll be 300 feet. Next slide, please. Okay, so 300 persons, nightclub in the city if they have it, entertainment establishment if they don't. Next slide. Okay, and next. Okay, so the next step, of course, is to forward this to the full MAPC and schedule it with the city council and the BOCC after that. And so right now, we just let you know, there have been briefings, city council briefings in March of 22, DAB meetings last summer, and stakeholder open house in October. Okay.
Mary, it seems that
That's what I have.
300 is a pretty high threshold. From the things you described when you introduced this, we're not looking at anything close to 300.
Say that. Are you thinking it should be lower? Is that your comment?
I just wondered how we arrived at 300.
Oh, do you recall? It's been a while.
Yeah, Scott Wadle. The way that we arrived at 300 is because there are other licenses that closely reflect that number. And also because when we look at the capacity of a restaurant like a Chili's or what was another one, TGI Fridays or something like that, we were shooting for something that was high enough that it wouldn't capture a lot of restaurants, but it was low enough that it would capture a lot of the nightclubs that we can think of, like Club Rodeo certainly exceeds that, but also some of the ones in Old Town, I think they're around 300, 400 capacity. So that's why we chose that number of 300. Now, with that said, it's really about the term, the use nightclub in the city. So if something is less than 300 in terms of capacity, they would still receive a notification letter. But in this case, it would say, what was it, entertainment establishment.
Yes,
I believe
entertainment
is the term. So they would still receive notification that an entertainment establishment is seeking to open up next to them. The nightclub term would only be used if the facility has a capacity of over 300 or more.
It seems like we could handle that by making an exception for food to increase the capacity.
Yeah, I think with this one, it was the challenge of how do we tweak the code, make the adjustment so that we can help hopefully eliminate or reduce the amount of confusion for right now. And then if we need to do something more substantial, we could certainly look at that in the future.
Commission, any other comment? Tony?
We're using the fire department occupancy load to establish the size.
You know,
I believe that's
I
correct.
believe that is correct.
think?
Yeah, I would defer to JR if he was here, but I believe that that's correct.
Well, and that's what, when that sign is posted inside Chili's that says maximum capacity, we surveyed that to see where were they falling? And so many of them were like 250, 270. That was their maximum capacity. And that's what we wanted to capture.
It's just time to push it on. We've been working on this for a couple of years and it's been difficult coming up with a number and a system wording that fits all the time every way. It's still going to be an issue, but this is a huge improvement. So it's time to push it forward and get something going on it.
Thank you.
Anybody would like to speak on this? Seeing none, I would suggest that by consensus, we pass this on to the MAPC.
I agree.
Thank you.
We have agreement? Thank you. Any off agenda items? Scott looks like he's just ready to say something.
Well, I've been informed that there are individuals who would like to provide some public comment. So I know, and I believe it was on some items that were kind of, I know we jumped around a little bit because of getting the PowerPoint going. So I don't know if you intend to, but I would encourage you to take public comments as item number 6, and that would provide people an opportunity to provide any comments that they've got.
I would be happy to do that. Who would like to do that? Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Mark Brady. I'm an attorney with the Pulcinella Law Firm. I'm happy to be back here again, and we do certainly appreciate you holding kind of the special meeting and make sure that the timelines are moving forward quickly. And I enjoyed the time I had last week communicating on the solar energy regulations, and that's what I'm here to talk about again today. And again, I will limit my comments to 3 minutes, and I appreciate that. We do really think that the overall framework that the planning staff is using for the online survey and the open house is good, where you have individual topics, and then you have what the current zoning regulations cover on those particular topics, and then an opportunity to comment on how those individual topics can be addressed, improved, or modified. We think that format's great, and we like the way the currently robust zoning regulations that the county has are kind of spelled out in detail, so everybody knows what those are. What we would like to suggest, however, is that those topics be focused more on the particular items that the county commission identified at the meeting where they adopted the moratorium and charged the planning staff of the planning department to revisit the solar zoning regulations, because they did identify some discrete topics that they thought should be the focus of that effort. And those were the environmental impacts, the aesthetics of a solar project, the economic development and financial and tax benefits for the particular project, and then as well as public safety concerns such as the glare and communication with the FAA and and fire issues, all of which are currently addressed in very comprehensive manner in the zoning regulations. So that would be our comment. We feel that focusing in on those discrete topics that the county commission identified would provide a more effective and efficient and productive open house and online survey process, and would really address the primary items that the county commission wanted the APC and the MAPC to look at. So thank you.
You have another 50 seconds.
No, well, no, that covers it. So I appreciate your time. And again, we appreciate the ability to be here, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker? Anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Forgot to thank you for speaking. Thank you.